Can we start off with question number one, mate?
Yeah, let's do it.
What is it?
I don't know.
That's where you shine.
Oh, is my? I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Look, I think identifying the sort of person that you're dealing with initially is so important.
Okay. And how do you find that out?
Well, making a phone call, speaking to the company, because a lot of the time you're dealing with maybe a receptionist, a front end, if you will. And it's nice to ask the question, can I actually speak to my inspector that will be inspecting my property?
Right. So don't just talk to Sally in reception or like Jeff answering the phone and then they've got nothing to do with the actual inspection. You reckon it's important to speak to the person that's on the tools?
I think, yeah, if you want to learn a little bit more about what sort of service you're gonna get, and look, it's not to say that the receptionist doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay. I'm sure they do, but it is definitely, I think, very beneficial to speak to the inspector that's actually going to be performing your inspection to understand what sort of person you're dealing with here. Are they willing to help you before you lay down any money? Because at the end of the day, it's really about helping people.
Okay, so you're saying what you want to get out of that is if you end up talking to them and they just seem like the kind of person that's maybe trying to brush you off the phone or can't actually explain things very well, probably not a good sign of someone that you want to look through one of the biggest assets you're ever going to purchase.
Yeah, look, I think initially when you make this sort of phone call, you'll probably be hit with, well, the inspector's busy at the moment because they're probably doing an inspection or they're doing something.
Naturally.
We'll have the inspector call you back. Now, well, if the inspector doesn't call you back, well, you probably know to move on. And, you know, those little things like when the reception turns around and says, they'll call you back when, you know, is it going to be in an hour? Is it going to be in 2 hours? And you can sort of gauge what sort of company you're dealing with initially because the receptionist turns around and goes, well, you know, looks at their schedule and goes, the inspector is going to be available in about 1 hour. Is it okay if they call you back in 1 to 2 hours?
Gotcha.
And then you get that phone call back and you know, initially you're already dealing with a person that is willing to help, is going to make those phone calls. And you know you're dealing with a person that is willing to take the time on someone that hasn't even given them any money yet.
And that's organised as well.
Yeah, definitely. Organisation is key because you're dealing with a profession where it very is organized based. Like, you know, you need to have all your ducks in a row, especially if you're dealing with multiple people and multiple properties because, you can let the ball drop very quickly and forget things. And, you know, you want that person that's willing to remember you before you're even a part of their picture.
Love it, mate. What's question number 2?
The next one would be availability after the inspection has been completed. So you can either speak to a receptionist, you can speak to the inspector about this, and just simply ask them, look, what's your availability after a pre-purchase inspection has been completed? Do you speak to me over the phone and we cut ties and see you later, best of luck, and good luck with your investment?
Or you're actually there to explain things.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, can I call you after hours? Are you available after 5:30? Because a lot of people, from my understanding, they shut the phone off at 5:30, and you know, very important to understand the inspection in its entirety.
And especially depending on what state you're buying in. I know some states you've got a 2-week BMP clause and sometimes even longer, but then others like you basically got 24 hours.
Yeah, in South Australia, we're very unfortunate. You need to make a snap decision on one of the biggest investments in your life. It's pretty crazy.
It really is. All right, man. Going to the third and top question, what should you be asking a building inspector?
I think one of the most, and this is very important, it's to understand what they didn't see throughout the inspection. So what were your limitations, and understanding the true limitations of the inspection, because in an inspection report, you know, you're dealing with 80 to 100 pages in most circumstances, and it is full of things that an inspector can't see. I think determining and establishing exactly what they didn't see so that you can make a more informed decision is extremely important, because in a report, for example, it may say, look, I couldn't get access to the subfloor, you know, make sure you have the subfloor inspected, and having that one-on-one discussion with your inspector going, look, just wondering what exactly is it that you couldn't see, like in relation to the roof.
And is this what couldn't you see and what could potentially be an issue? Because otherwise you might just have this huge list of like, well, I couldn't see like blah, blah, blah. Yes. And you're like, well, I'm not going to get everything, like, because you and I were chatting off air and I think you said perfectly before, if you want like a proper building inspection, you're getting a sparky, a plumber, an engineer. Like
yes.
there's also a line, obviously.
Oh, correct. Yeah. I mean, different types of construction will determine, where that line is.
Yep.
So, for example, let's say the inspector found termites at the property and you're dealing with a timber subfloor home, and they turn around and you say, well, what couldn't you see? And the inspector should be turning around and say, well, look, there was no traps inside the home, so I can't see underneath the floors.
Okay. Anything
could be happening here. It's very important that we further determine exactly what's going on underneath there to establish, if there's any damage, because it's a very hard game, because you can't exactly do that within the cooling off period and stuff. And, it can be very difficult to convince a homeowner, hey, can we cut up your floors so that we can make sure that it's all good under there? But, establishing...
I wouldn't be saying yes to that.
Yeah, well, it's going to be quite rare. But understanding where you stand is so important, because that, when you do move into the property, it's like, okay, well, there could be termites underneath this floor. It's a real possibility. That's something we are making a decision on without any true information. So understanding the actual facts before you invest, I think is so important.
So basically, we're wanting to make sure that we can actually speak to the building inspector who's going to perform the inspection, that they've got a clear line of communication, that they're available to actually talk after the inspection, and that we can clearly see what couldn't they see that could have potentially been an issue. Chris Lamanna from Home Masters, thank you so much for jumping on the show, mate.
My pleasure.
It's a fast one, but it's going to be a real helpful one.
That's fine. Thanks, mate.